Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, welcome back to another Opus Dei Deep Dive video. Or if it's your first time here, hi, hello, welcome to my channel. I do deep dive research videos into the Catholic organization Opus Dei, their questionable unethical behavior, their cult-like tendencies, and some interesting connections that they have to some key global players. So if that sounds like something that's interesting to you, please consider subscribing so that you will be here for all future videos as I continue to expose Opus Dei and their true intentions. Throughout my foray into the weird world of Opus Dei, I have had people reach out to me who have been at one point or another in some way connected to Opus Dei. They've shared their stories, and a lot of the time they've helped steer me in the direction I've needed to go with my research, which has been very helpful. One such individual told me that I really needed to turn my attention to South America. They didn't go into a ton of detail about why, they just said that South America and Opus Dei was very significant and I needed to look into it. I knew that I would probably do that at some point anyway, just because throughout my research, Opus Dei and South America together have continued to come up quite a bit. And so today we are going to be attempting to scratch the surface and explore why exactly Opus Dei is so preoccupied with South America. Now, as always, and although I say this at the beginning of every single one of these videos, I still get people in the comments section telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about and that I made everything up. But as always, all of my sources will be linked in the description of this video, and I encourage you to go and look at those at your leisure. There's a ton of information, it's all very interesting, and it goes to show that I'm not just pulling this out of my ass. It actually is coming from somewhere. I'm not the only one talking about this, despite the fact that Opus Dei might wish otherwise. So all of that said, let's go ahead and dive into the video. Since the inception of the organization, South America has been a hot item for Opus Dei. Escriva himself made many trips to the continent in his lifetime and wasted no time rushing numeraries to the various countries to establish Opus Dei centers and begin God's work in earnest. But to understand why this is so important, we only need to understand the roots from which Opus Dei grew and the political climate during the years following. Spain was under fascist rule with Franco at the helm. The fact that Escriva was a supporter of fascism and Franco is no secret. Opus Dei is built on far right-wing ideologies, and this is a fact that remains true to this day, despite what anyone might tell you to the contrary. Denying that would be denying what Opus Dei came from. In the time following the end of World War II, communism grew in popularity and became a topic of concern, especially as Polish communists embraced Catholicism and Latin American Catholics embraced communism. Now, this is the point in the story where things go from 0 to 100 real quick, so hold on to your hats. As an interesting aside that actually continues to come up quite a bit throughout the rest of this story, the Vatican and the CIA might seem like strange bedfellows, but given the Vatican's position as a world power, they're the perfect allies in the fight to halt the spread of communism, which is really what all of this is about. And although it might seem like I'm letting the cat out of the bag a bit prematurely by saying that, just sit through the rest of the video because I go into more depth and explain exactly why that is. The CIA has a long and storied history of working with far-right groups like Opus Dei to counter the actions of progressive individuals and organizations around the world, but especially in South America. Opus Dei is the perfect candidate because of their vehemently anti-communist attitude. So let's look at the history of Opus Dei in South America in a highly condensed fashion and see what sort of overall image emerges. Opus Dei has hovered at the fringes of many historical and political events, but the part that they have played should not be understated, especially because it serves to paint such an accurate picture of what Opus Dei's true intentions are. So let's start in Chile. During the 1970s, President Nixon and the CIA became concerned that President Salvador Allende and Chile would become another Cuba, and that Allende would ally himself with other socialist South American countries. Opus Dei elicited support from Chilean bishops to overthrow Allende and worked with CIA-funded organizations such as Fatherland and Liberty, which is a fascist political and paramilitary group that merged with the DINA, or the National Intelligence Directorate, aka the Chilean Secret Police. In 1971, the CIA funded the Chilean Institute for General Studies, or IGS, which has been described as an Opus Dei think tank. The IGS, run by Pablo Baronia, was patterned after the CSIS in Spain that handled the intellectual pacification of schools and the press in fascist dictator Franco's Spain. So basically they reprogrammed everyone to embrace whatever narrative was popular at the time and controlled what information was available to the public via the press. Now, where have we seen that happen recently? Anyway, the IGS, along with independent Opus Dei actors, assisted in overthrowing Allende and establishing Pinochet in his place. This whole coup is very interesting all on its own. It's an event that I honestly didn't know anything about prior to doing the research for this video. You really should go and look into it a little bit on your own time, especially if you're interested in history at all. There's a really good video that I saw, and if I can remember, I'll link it down below, but if you just type in Pinochet or Salvador Allende, it should come up. It was the top result for me. But at any rate, FilipinoFolio.com had this to say about the event. In 1970, President Nixon ordered a coup d'etat against the government of President Salvador Allende in Chile, but the Chilean military had no experience in running a government. The CIA needed a team of economists, lawyers, business executives, and media experts who were willing and able to work with the military in administering a modern, complex economy. Eventually, the IGS think tank of free market economists were pressed into service to do the job. 20 of these IGS technocrats, led by Pablo Baronia, were trained by the CIA from late 1971 till 1973. Alvaro Puga of IGS, in his column Diario de Vida de Ud, actually predicted with uncanny accuracy the political assassinations, the murder of Allende, and the date of the coup. Opus Dei helped Pinochet get rid of Allende and set up a repressive military dictatorship. Opus Dei occupied the two most important ministries, foreign relations and economic development, just where they had to be to best serve the CIA. An article that I read compared Pinochet to Spain's Franco and stated that Opus Dei supported the strikes and participated in authoritarian regimes in other third world countries around the globe. It has, time and again, utilized the priests and clergy in their neoliberal fundamentalist efforts. This puts the Catholic Church's intensive missionary efforts in developing countries in a very different light. And although, of course, to this day, the Vatican denies the severity of Pinochet's actions, probably so as to lessen the unpleasant light this casts on them having been connected to the whole affair. I think it's safe to say that surviving Chilean citizens have a very different perspective on the whole event, considering that a news headline that was published after Pinochet's death in 2006 read, "Pinochet was received into hell by members of Opus Dei, the KKK, and Adolf Hitler." It doesn't seem like they were very thankful for having their nation's affairs hijacked by outside players. Now let's move on to Colombia. During the Reagan era, Pope Benedict, who was then still just Joseph Ratzinger, as president of the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith, formerly the Office of the Holy Inquisition, oversaw the setting up of a surveillance center in Bogota, Colombia, with a powerful computer of strategic capacity that was connected to the Vatican. It recorded all data and political activities of designated leftist Latin American priests and religious people dedicated to the vision and practice of liberation theology. Now, prior to all of this, I can't say that I was very familiar with what exactly liberation theology was, but in essence, it is a movement that sees justice for the poor as synonymous with God's will. This would obviously not complement Opus Dei well, since the organization is quite literally the work of God, and it has, time and again, proven that the only people it cares to uplift and improve are those with social and political advantages that can be exploited. And so it should be unsurprising that the data collected by this supercomputer was disseminated to US-trained so-called counterinsurgency experts, and death squads were able to identify and assassinate many people, as in the case of El Salvador with the murder of hundreds of religious workers, including the outspoken voice of the poor Archbishop Oscar Romero. Of course, the goal has never been to reform liberation theology in any way, but rather to undo and remove any trace of it. And the ground for this strategy was prepared by Ratzinger. He made the fraudulent claim that liberation theology is, quote, an ideological stream which is the source of many violent actions on the continent. End quote. Now, at this point in the story, an image should be beginning to emerge for you of the attitudes and movements that were popular in South America during these time periods. And you should also be able to understand why that wouldn't be such a great thing for an organization like Opus Dei, and why they would be so willing to ally themselves with the Vatican or the CIA or the United States or whoever, and whatever their mission may be, to disrupt those movements. Now, although I am sure there are other cases in other South American countries where Opus Dei has stepped in and muddied the waters, I just have one more country that we're going to go over, and that is Venezuela. Venezuela went through a failed US-backed coup attempt with Opus Dei fingerprints in April of 2002. Following that, the newly appointed President Pedro Carmona named a government that included several members of Opus Dei. He dissolved the National Assembly and the Supreme Court and announced a far-right government, including Jose Rodriguez Iturbe as foreign minister, who was a member of Opus Dei as well. The actual severity of the coup was likely far worse than reported, with more than 100 people dying before and after the event. The term frenzied house cleaning was applied to the new Opus Dei cabinet as they cleared house of various democratically elected state governors. Following, there were house-to-house searches, lynchings, and executions of community leaders and Chavez partisans. Television stations and the national press supported the new ultra-right-wing government and silenced dissident voices. But by April 13th, Chavez led a counter-coup sparked by an uprising of the poor and working-class peoples, and he was victorious. Something that I am sensing throughout all of this is this push and pull between fascism and communism, between the upper class and the working class, and I suppose that might be a very Karl Marx thing to say because he was all about the haves and the have-nots in the class struggle. That is something that I see exhibited very clearly in all of these situations, and it's really sad to me that as a result of these big players, these big governments not being able to get along and clashing, that innocent people were caught in the crossfire and lost their lives. Opus Dei's preoccupation with South America seems to be that of disrupting and destroying liberation theology and pushing fascist right-wing ideals wherever possible under the guise of Catholic evangelism and social outreach. Now, before we wrap all this up, I want to make sure that I say that I am not for or against one side or the other, one political view or the other, especially when it comes to foreign affairs, because I'll be honest, it's a complex subject that is a little bit outside of my ability to comprehend every nuanced detail of at this point. But I'm definitely trying to educate myself more and understand better because I think it's very important. The point of highlighting these separate events serves to show the part that Opus Dei has played. Make no mistake about it, none of their involvement comes from an altruistic perspective. This is purely about pushing an agenda, and the fact that the agenda has, at certain points, aligned with commonly held Western beliefs is more of a coincidence than anything else. If the time ever comes, and based off of what I've seen of Opus Dei's involvement in American politics, that may be sooner than later. When Opus Dei and Western society part ways, Opus Dei will not spare a moment's thought for past alliances. This story has and always will be about the work of God and their own internal goals. So that, in a very condensed nutshell, is Opus Dei in South America. As we continue to go along and I do more research, I'll keep an eye out for more details about Opus Dei's involvement in South American politics. That seems to be what they like to do, so I'm sure there's more information out there. If you have anything or know of a direction in which I should turn my attention, feel free to let me know. I definitely take all comments and advice into consideration, especially when it comes to digging into Opus Dei's actions with foreign affairs. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that it made you think. It definitely made me think about a lot of things, not only about the state of our world, but also the condition of the United States at this point in time. It's a very interesting time to be alive, and I saw some interesting parallels in some of these historical events. Hopefully you found this enlightening. It gave you something to mull over and take away with you. Like I said, go and check out those sources. They're all linked in the description. You can check those out at any time. But that is it for me for now. I will try to be back again in the not too distant future with another video. I have other outlines that I'm working on, so stay tuned for those. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment. I really appreciate everybody's support. I forgot to mention in my last video that I hit 200 subscribers. I think it's a little bit over that now. And I know that a lot of that is due to the success of this deep dive series on my channel. So thank you guys so much for your continued support. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching my videos, and I hope I will see you for the next one whenever and wherever that may be. Stay safe. Bye.